Well, howdy folks, it's Matthew, your friendly neighborhood technician, making another video out of Boise, Idaho here. At this point, we're continuing to move forward with the 2001 Buick LeSabre Custom. You know, these Buicks, they're pretty decent cars, especially if you love on them and take care of them. They really do seem to last forever. So, plus the 3.8 liter engine that comes in them seems to last forever as well. And so that's what we're doing here, working on a 2001 Buick LeSabre Custom 3.8 liter engine. We're replacing the rack and pinion, as well as new wheel hubs and ABS sensors and tie rod ends and all that other good stuff inside of there. Brakes, rotors, rack and pinion, I think I already said that. So the reason why I have everything broke down, if you followed the first video, is so we can go ahead and get the engine subframe, also known as the engine cradle, lowered, so we can go ahead and get the rack and pinion out. I'm about ready to do that, but at the same time we are also replacing the power steering pump, the lines, and pretty much the whole power steering system, so as well as the water pump, and I'll kind of tell you throughout this video how we ended up there. So the last video showed the complete breakdown of the suspension and wheel hub, and that's where we stopped. If you stopped there, go ahead, regroup, get all your tools cleaned up, and let's start up top here. Now, in order to remove the alternator bracket with tensioner and heater hoses, the power steering pump, and the water pump, in order to remove all this stuff, you're going to need anywhere between an 8mm socket and wrench on up to a 15, 17mm sockets and wrenches. And so from 8 on up to about 17mm socket and wrenches is what you're going to want. Now, if you're just going in and just replacing the power steering pump, some of the steps that I'm about to show you aren't necessarily necessary. However, I like to think that by doing it the way I do it, it leaves a lot of room to work. You're not cramped in there. It takes a little bit of extra time to remove the alternator and the bracket, but again, it also opens it up wide open so you can get in there and pull that power steering pump and all that other good stuff. So the very first thing that you always want to start with, though, is go ahead and disconnect your battery or your electrical system from your alternator, and then from there it's just 10mm nuts and a few bolts that hold the reservoir right here, your big plastic reservoir. Go ahead and remove that out of the way, and then you're going to go ahead and get on your tensioner here, okay, and you're going to get your belt out of the way. And then at that point, you're going to have 3 15mm bolts. They're going to be on the top, 1, 2, and then 1 on the side, 3. Now, these are the bolts that hold your alternator, all right, and you really don't have to do much. Unplug your alternator and just set it aside here. Go ahead and get it loose out of the way, and then from there, go ahead and drain your coolant, regardless of whether you're doing a water pump or not. Go ahead and drain your coolant and pull, and if you notice, these are your heater hoses right here, and this is a big glorified bracket. This is the only thing I don't like about the 3.8 liter, is that they put this big glorified bracket for the alternator and the tensioner. This is, you see, your tensioner is built into that. But at that point, go ahead and remove this. If you don't want to mess with your heater hoses, don't, because as you can see, you don't have to fully disconnect it. All you got to do is remove the bolts, pick it up, and set it up out of the way. You're not going to hurt anything. Also, by doing this, you can go ahead and replace the O-rings on those elbows in there. Now, somebody's already been in here and they did a good job by putting the new upgraded aluminum ones, because from the factory they're plastic. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and replace the O-rings in here as well. So once you have that out of the way, you're going to want to go underneath the vehicle, and you're going to want to use a 5/8 line wrench to get the high pressure line off of the power steering pump. I'm going to show you that here in just a second. All right, and before we go underneath and I show you where that line is, one of the things I want to suggest is what I'm using here to suck the fluid out of the power steering pump before I take it apart to minimize the amount of of nasty oil or fluid that goes everywhere is kind of like a turkey baster syringe type thing here. I actually got this from like the kitchen section. So it comes from one of those injection kits. You can also actually use a large turkey baster or just any type of hand pump. And go ahead, if you notice I have just a regular Folgers coffee cup there, coffee can there. Just go ahead and suck as much fluid as you can out of there and transfer it to a coffee can or something like that for proper disposal later. And that'll minimize the amount of mess that we're about to make. All right, let's go underneath and check out that high pressure line. Okay, your high pressure line is right here. It's going to be hidden right behind the fender over here. If you can see, if I can get you a good shot there. Okay, so if you go straight underneath, right next to your axle right here, you can find it. Now, if you get your 5/8 line wrench and you go long ways, get it up in here, and you go long ways right here, then you can go ahead and you can break it off. Again, this is from the factory. It shouldn't be on there super tight unless somebody's been on there and really cranked down on it. It's pretty easy to get out. I've actually already got this one loose. And I'm going to go get a drain bucket here and some kitty litter just in case I make a mess. And go ahead and get this thing out of here. So there it is right there, and it's a 5/8 line wrench. Alright, now that we've got our lines separated, we are going to go through the holes in the pulley. Okay, you can actually see where I've already gone right here. With a 13mm socket, you see where my finger's going through here? Just line your hole up with that bolt. You're going to have one here, and then you're going to have one opposite down here. Okay, 13mm. Go ahead and get those two bolts out, and then prepare to lift your power steering pump out. Alright, so there you go. That's what it looks like with the power steering pump removed. And obviously at this point you have the pump removed and it's sitting on the bench. Let's go check it out on the bench. Alright, there's our new pump there. Here's our old pump. Now, what I'm doing here is I've got a pulley remover and installer set, just a simple one. You can pick this up at Harbor Freight for like, I don't know, 10-20 bucks. I think I've had this one for years actually, so just as good as any name brand one. And you're gonna set it up like you see here, your two cups here with your guard here, and you're gonna use a 21mm wrench with a 13mm socket. Hold your wrench, turn your socket, and it's gonna suck the pulley off. And then you're going to use the system basically in reverse along with this washer and bearing to reinstall your pulley on your new pump. Alrighty, and using our pulley remover and installation set, we've transferred our pulley to our new pump and we are ready to go. So I'm going to set that aside there. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my 8mm socket, my 10mm socket, and I'm also going to get a strap wrench. I'm going to go ahead and go a little further myself, and I'm going to get this water pump out because I'm also replacing that. If you're not doing anything like that, then obviously you can do everything in reverse, get your pump back on. I'm also going to be replacing my power steering lines along with the rack and pinion, so I'll be doing that. If you're not doing that, go ahead and reconnect your lines the same way they came off, get your pump back on, and then start rebuilding from there. Get your bracket back on, put your alternator back on, get your belt back on, all that other good stuff. What I'm going to go ahead and do is get my 8mm and my 10mm sockets, my strap wrench, so I can hold this and get this pulley off of here and go ahead and get this pump out. Alright, and as you can see, this is how I use a strap wrench to hold a pulley in place. All it does is once you hold it here, if installed right, it keeps the pulley from moving back and forth while you're trying to loosen up nuts and bolts. So it's a neat little trick. Alright, so I use an 8mm to loosen up my pulley bolts. I'm going to go ahead and get my pulley disconnected, and then we'll have a good view of the water pump, and we'll work on getting the water pump off. Alright, here we are. We have the water pump, and the reason why we're replacing this water pump is it's showing the first signs of wear and tear, and that's a free spinning pulley. That's a sign that the bearings are starting to get loose, and it's really only a matter of months before your water pump begins to go out, so it's wise to go ahead and get it changed. So now we're going to use a 13mm times 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 10mm times 1, 2, 3. There's going to be one hidden on the bottom in order to get this water pump off. Alrighty then, there you have it. Water pump is removed. Now I just need to get in here, clean all this up, get all this old gasket material cleaned up, start getting it prepared to install my new pump. Upon further inspection, I'm glad that we did decide to go ahead and do a water pump. It doesn't cost near as much money because I'm already in there, and might as well get it done. I don't have two hands, but I mean, that's just, you know, nothing big to it. It's an old water pump in the beginning stages of going out, and what tells you that is how freely it spins. So there you go, folks. Now at this point, if you're just doing your water pump, go ahead and put everything back together in reverse, and you're good to go. Again, I'm going to go ahead and stop here now, regroup. I got a little bit of a mess I need to clean up, get some kitty litter laid out and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and regroup and get ready to make the third part of this video series for this Buick LeSabre, and that's getting the rack and pinion out of there, which is going to be big all by itself. So I appreciate everybody that watches my videos and supports me. Thanks for coming out and watching. If you have any questions about your Buick or any other cars, just shoot them to me in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you. I've been known to trade emails and even swap phone numbers, and if there's something complicated that you can't get figured out, I'm more than happy to help. All right, folks, well, it's getting hot out here. I'm getting tired for the day, so I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. This is Matthew, your friendly neighborhood technician, signing off.